They're saying they're not letting people in. They're not letting the ordinary citizens help the people that live there.
Every account that I have seen, they are actually letting people in. And
I think Republicans and Democrats are the same terrorist, tyrannical government.
A proper process, not a single name or a vote was cast in her name for the candidacy.
Question: you paid for it by the Kamala campaign? Are
No,
you
I necessarily love the way the left has handled a lot of things here recently, and I just want to get your.
So let's bring in Lars. Let's see what Lars got to say. What's going on, Lars? What do you think? What's going on, Lars? What do you think about the FEMA situation that's going on the ground?
I mean, kind of like Connor said, I think they're doing everything they can there. I don't necessarily think that that's always something that's the easiest thing to navigate for either party. I guess I wanted to respond to, your title because.
Yeah, I got you.
I am not really. I do not like Trump, right? But I don't necessarily love the way the left has handled a lot of things here recently, and I just want to get your opinion on something here. So, with the the whole thing about Biden stepping down, right? And obviously, September 6th was an awful scar for democracy, but then for the left to essentially pick a candidate without any of the delegates or anyone being able to vote on the matter, just essentially, hey, this is who we're going to put in front of you, and not a single person had the ability to vote. I don't think it's a very democratic process. Now, I know we're a representative republic. I know all that stuff, right? But when we talk about this kind of things, we got to use these kinds of words. But I don't love how they just say, oh, this is so great, when I think that's pretty academically or intellectually dishonest to be able to say, hey, this was a proper process. Not a single name or a vote was cast in her name for the candidacy or for the nomination, let's say, rather. And I hate how dishonest that the party has been about that.
Well, let me go ahead and give you my opinion on that. So one of the things that I've understood is that the DNC, just like the RNC, is a private organization. They're not beholden by any technical law. In fact, the delegates did actually vote at the DNC they voted at the convention, right? Each state brought their own delegates, and that's why they went through the roll call and asked, and they said Kamala Harris and things like that. This happened at the RNC as well. I would say that it is still a democratic process. If you don't like that particular candidate, you could go in and you can vote for whoever you want to vote for. I think I don't really care so much as to how they nominated a particular candidate. And I would say even then, if you were to say it's not democratic, which I think it's fine, I think there's some democratic process still there. Especially by the way the delegates voting for that, I would still go back to and say it looks like by all accounts and by all measures, Democrats widely do favor Kamala Harris. And I haven't seen much that has shown anyways. And also, I think even to nominate somebody else wouldn't make a whole lot of sense anyways. Kamala, from what I've understood from all measures, has been able to take over Biden's war chest. It also seems like if you brought in any other candidate, I think one of the biggest ones going around was Jill Stein. She didn't have a whole lot of support to begin with. And you can do that, but it was a very short amount of time, right? We're talking about, I think it was like June or July that Kamala ended up coming in, and the election was supposed to happen in November. That's why, if you look at some of the platforms that were going on at the DNC, it was still mentioning Joe Biden running. And the reason why is because in order to change that platform, they would have to still do things by process of a vote to actually change the party platform. So you could say whether or not it's democratic, it depends on how loosely we use that word. Again, I'm not too much concerned about a private organization, how they do their thing. A private organization can run how they want to do it. And if we don't like it, then somebody could put in a law and try to sit there and say that this is how it needs to be done. I don't know how I would really feel about that personally. Again, I think you can vote for whoever you want to vote for at the end of the day. You still aren't obliged to vote for Kamala just because the DNC decided to bring Kamala as their candidate.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing that I feel differently about how the DNC does it. I'm just saying for them to elect, pick her, and she was, I mean, you can probably disagree with this, but before Biden stepped down, she was very unfavorable. I think she was even more unfavorable than Biden at the time, right? But they knew that there was no path forward with Biden. So then, they said, okay, we got to find someone, and Kamala just kind of came there. Then her polling maybe went up because of what all the Democratic Party said, and it's like, oh, this was so awesome. This is exactly what we've been trying to do the whole time. That's where I'm saying, they've been a little bit intellectually dishonest, in my opinion, about it.
No, I get that. I respect that. And I don't want anything I say to come off like I don't. And I think when you look at a lot of what's been going on with Kamala, I understand that her initial perception, and it's undeniable that she was probably a little bit more progressive running around in the 2020 election as opposed to being more moderate now. But again, that's where I tell people this all the time, is that when you look at the two different candidates, I would much rather have a moderate Democrat running for office than having somebody like Donald Trump, who is very open and honest. And I keep telling people this. I'm like, look, you know what? Let Donald Trump be open. Let Donald Trump be honest. Let him not be your typical politician, because guess what? It reveals his true colors. Now, with Kamala, you may say that's a negative thing. I think it's a fine thing. I do know where she kind of generally stands. She has had a progressive past, and it didn't work out too well for her. And it seems that through what she's worked with under Biden, it seems that she has probably moderated some of her positions, having been vice president. Now, time will tell, and I think that what we're going to see is we're going to see kind of a split Congress come this election, and I think that what we're going to see is a more moderate presidency from Kamala Harris. And even with Donald Trump, I'm a little hesitant on that. Even thinking Donald Trump going into office, I would still be kind of concerned with how he would end up trying to push through certain policies. He's been known, for example, to go through and try to reallocate funding from FEMA, even though it's congressionally approved. We've seen this from I believe it's the DOD to fund the wall, right? Is that he has ways of trying to go around and skirt around Congress. Whereas I do believe that Kamala Harris would work with Congress, and seeing that she also had the most tie-breaking votes ever as a vice president, I do think she's going to be more moderate, and I'm not entirely too concerned about the fact that she ended up getting nominated through if you want to call it an undemocratic process, so be it, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, again, it was just it felt like it was raining and they're telling you it was 80 and sunny kind of sometimes, right?
Well, it's like when I was in 2020, I had a lot of criticisms of the left, and at that time I was still in 2020, I was still a little bit more on the conservative side, and I had a lot of criticism of those who were standing Biden. I'm like, I kind of had that same thing that Republicans have now, which is, look, you clearly voted for Biden because he's just not Trump.
Right.
That's pretty clear now, but I think that it has shifted a little bit when it comes to Kamala. I think there are a lot of policy positions that Kamala has that make her super favorable. I also think that the contrast between the two candidates is dramatically different. She's very upbeat, and I know I'm gonna say the word joyous because I know it triggers people, and I love it. Is that she's more joyous. Donald Trump's more doom and gloom. The country's going to come to an end if I'm not elected, and so I think these contrasts are just completely different. And so that's where I do think she stands out a little bit different than the 2020 Joe Biden. So, but I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, can I ask one last question?
Yeah, of course.
Because I'm extremely independent leaning, right? I mean, sure. I am very conservative, but I think probably one of our most important things is the climate change crisis. So I'm I consider myself not really affiliated with anyone, which I think is important to say as a precursor. But I guess if I'm someone who wants conservatives in office, Donald Trump is my biggest enemy because people are voting against him no matter what they believe in because they hate Donald Trump. So why do you think it is that so many Americans and politicians are so blind to that fact that they can't, detach themselves from Donald Trump? I mean, what kind of, psychology behind that, or what kind of psychology is there behind that, rather? Because, again, I was excited the way the 2022 midterms went because it meant, okay, we're finally going to get rid of Donald Trump because of how badly we performed. Technically speaking, proportionately with all the, ratings approval ratings, that the Democrats had, we should have had the biggest shift in seats in history. If you look at what proportion of people were disapproved and how many seats they lost and yada yada yada, right? So the right extremely underperformed in 2022, but they didn't change anything. I mean, they didn't change anything.
No, they didn't.
And it's almost like political malpractice. So I want to know what your thoughts on that are.
Thoughts more specifically on the malpractice part, or where
why the right can't detach themselves from Trump? Because
it's hard for me to wrap my head around that. I don't have an answer for you, to be quite frank, because I think that's one of the things that, like you said, it's like every candidate who really gets supported by Donald Trump seems to have either end up in some kind of wild controversy or they end up not getting elected. And it's time after time and time after again. And why the Republican Party is so hell-bent on supporting Donald Trump is beyond me. However, I think we are starting to see a shift. We are seeing more and more Republicans coming out and supporting Kamala Harris, and not just your run-of-the-mill like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. We're seeing, I'd have to look at it. There's a few other Republicans that have actually stepped out and said, hey, I'm supporting Kamala Harris. We saw Mike Pence do all but endorse Kamala Harris. So there's a lot of angles that we can see Republicans starting to go that way. I think that if Kamala Harris were to get elected, I think that's really going to put a pep in the step of a lot of Republicans to start kind of taking back their party. And right now, I think we're going to see, I believe that we're going to see a record turnout of Republicans voting for Kamala Harris. But I think that because of how loyal that MAGA base is, I think this is going to be that moment where you're going to have the silent majority, where a lot of people are afraid of even mentioning that, hey, like, you know, hey, mom, hey, dad, I'm voting for Kamala Harris. If I told that to my family, good Lord, I'd be exiled. So for me, it's like, I think that we are going to see the beginning of the end. If Kamala Harris were to be elected, I think a lot more Republicans are starting to kind of go that way. But it does sadden me to see over the past couple of years where they are absolutely being puppeted by Donald Trump. It's insane to me.
Well, yeah, but again, like, yeah, I don't even know if it's more about like the constituents. Like, people are still voting for Donald Trump, you know. And if I want a conservative person in office, I don't know why you would be voting for Donald Trump, because he is your biggest enemy. So just from the political standpoint, where you are so blind to the fact that, you know, you're going to suffer in terms of the elections, because you know, whether or not we can agree with this, but the Democrats were highly unfavored in this you know, term from Biden, right? So if you had anyone, you know, slightly progressive or slightly middle on the you know, right side, I think they would have absolutely swept the floor with anyone. But again, they just continue to choose to elect Donald Trump and put him on, you know, the ticket. And I think that's what hurts the Republicans most in the long run. And, you know, like you said, maybe it's going to change this year where, okay, you know, people feel very strong that he lost to someone like Kamala or even Joe Biden, let's say, right, where you can finally detach yourself. But I just don't know how they got themselves in this situation again, right? I mean, yeah, it's just nuts to me.
It is. It's wild to me. And I completely sympathize with you. And I don't really know why Republicans have absolutely gone nuts. It's just been insane. I'm watching on the left, we got the Butler thing going on. It looks like there's some something going on over there. I don't know what it is that they got going on.
Yeah, okay, but I'll leave now, but I appreciate.
Yeah, no, not a problem. I appreciate it, buddy. Oh, there it is. Elon's coming up. That's what it is. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming by, Lars. Thank you so much, and it was good talking with you, buddy. What our first guest is here. Let's see. We got Paul here. Let's see here. Waiting for Paul to come in. What's going on, Paul?
How you doing?
Doing good. About yourself, buddy?
Another day in paradise, brother. How you doing?
Absolutely. So right now, my biggest thing I've been talking about right now is a lot of the FEMA response. What's your stance on the FEMA response and how it's being handled by the Biden-Harris administration?
I think Republicans and Democrats are the same terrorist, tyrannical government, and I think it's time we abolish and we put we the people in. I mean, you have to be a billionaire to obtain office, and I think that we need we the people, not some Epstein Island pedophiles running our.
Hey! We gotta watch the language here, Paul.
Yeah, no, I feel it, but
so
I think we're in a situation that it's time to abolish. I mean, it's our right. It's literally written in the.
So if you don't want someone who's a billionaire, wouldn't it make sense then to vote for someone like Kamala Harris then?
No. Do you see what she's done to this country?
Yeah, I mean, she's actually brought down inflation back down to 2.5%.
That's the worst lie that I've heard all day long. I mean, I think we the people need to step up. And
those roses shine.
Do you not understand that hurricane was just man-made? That's a land grab to like the largest lithium mine.
So Paul, you're saying that this hurricane was man-made?
It was.
It was man-made.
I'm a pilot, and I will show you the flight plan of the plane that seeded that storm.
Okay, Paul, I'm sorry, buddy. I need someone in here who's going to be able to talk some like reason here. I'm not going to start spouting off these wild conspiracies. Oops. Okay, Bradley left. Let's bring in. Let's see, Mike. We got Mike over here. Let's go ahead and let Mike in. What's going on, Mike? How you doing, buddy?
How you doing?
Hanging in there, buddy. What's on your mind right now? My main thing I'm talking about is FEMA. How do you believe that the Biden and Harris administration have been handling the FEMA disaster? Or sorry, the FEMA disaster. My hurricane. Freudian slip.
Where they're saying they're not letting people in. They're not letting the ordinary citizens help the people that live there.
Every account that I have seen, they are actually letting people in, and there are helicopters coming in. They're landing. Every account that you look at.
I mean, let me ask you a question. Are you paid for by the Kamala campaign? Are
No,
you
I am not.
transgendered
I
by
don't have-
Obama?
Okay.
I mean, everything I heard.
So I'm gonna let him go. Let's go ahead and bring in this guy here. Hey, what's going on, Star? What's going on,
How's it
buddy?
going, man?
What is going on, bud? What you got? Right now we're talking about
I just really wanted to say that I really like Kamala's policies because it makes me work harder, you know? Makes me go out there, grind 12-hour shifts, come back and have no money left over at the end of the day. I just love it, bro.
No money left over? How do you have no money left over? What is
because everything's so expensive. Can't afford anything. Gas, grocery, grass, you know,
so
it's just so expensive these days.
What specifically
but I'm going to vote for Kamala again because I really like it. It makes me work harder.
Hey.
It makes me grind harder.
Okay, so I need to know what specifically. I'm gonna mute you for a minute, and then when you tell me what specifically that Kamala Harris did, if you don't, then I'm just gonna go ahead and kick you. So you need to let me know exactly what it is that Kamala Harris did. What did Kamala Harris do? Oops. There you go.
I'm pretty sure she signed the bill that caused all the inflation. She was the tiebreaker.
What bill? What
Are
bill?
you a moron?
What
Do you
bill
read?
was it?
Have you read a book?
Okay, we're going to the next one. So let's go to, let's see here. We got Hunter here. Bring in, Distant Haven was next. Yo, Distant Haven, you are on. Waiting for you to get jumped in, buddy. All right, Distant Haven, you got to connect, buddy. I'm going to let you go, and then when you get that situated, let me know. I'll bring in Hunter. Yo, let's see, waiting for Hunter to jump in. Yo, Hunter, what's going on? How are you doing today?
Yeah, man, stop spreading fake lies.
Do what? What lies am I spreading? Please tell me.
Nobody wants to hear this.
Nobody wants to hear this? Okay, that's great, buddy. So let me know when you get your stuff together, and then we'll go on to the next one. So, Arbach, what's going on, buddy? Tell me what's on your mind.
Hey, how are you? Good. I'm in Pennsylvania. And again, if you listen to all accounts, the governors of the southern states are very happy with the response they're receiving from the Biden-Harris administration. They said they're receiving, and the word they used was overwhelming. So, and like I think I heard you say or somebody say there are helicopters. I mean, there are.
That was what I was saying. Yeah.
People on the ground and. They're doing exactly what they're doing. And look, I hear people, bringing up this ridiculous claim that they only got $750. That's initially. That's correct. As soon as you walk in, you get it for emergency services, for food. But all the money is available. That the federal government is going to back every one of those southern states.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing too, is that the people don't realize is what they want is they want, instant. That's what that $750 is for. It takes time after they have cleared out and they've gotten everything taken care of that they're going to bring in. The FEMA's going to come through. They're going to end up setting up shop, and then they're going to have to do an assessment. You can't just sit there and say, well, my house washed away, and now I'm going to give you a whole bunch of money. That's just not how that works, right?
I have a friend who works. He's an intake taker for FEMA. He works part-time. He works 6 months a year, but he was just recently called, and he's in place in South Carolina as we speak, working 12 hours a day, taking the information that's needed. But I know you have 100 callers waiting, but I just wanted to.
I appreciate the support, buddy.
Yeah,
I appreciate it, man.
I'm up here in Pennsylvania. We are totally blue. I belong to a law enforcement coalition of retired police officers.
Thank you for your service.
And we are supporting Harris for president. But thank you very much.
Buddy.
And I'm going to give you a follow. I love your show.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. You have a good one, buddy. All right, let's go ahead. I appreciate that love. Let's go then back to Distant Haven. Let's see if he got his stuff together. All right, Distant Haven. I disconnected you for a minute because you weren't connected all the way. So
I don't know what's going on with my connection.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. So
You're good, buddy.
the prompt here, I just want to address right now is Kamala Harris a better candidate. Do you agree? In my opinion, I do not agree because the last 4 years is a rap sheet of what Kamala and the current administration is doing. And
what specifically have you noticed that? What policies of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have you noticed? What specific policies have ended up leading to what you believe to be record inflation? What policies?
Okay, it's already going off track. I did not talk about policies. I just want to talk about the everyday living, really in general.
Okay, so what about the everyday living?
The housing has gone up, and it was a little bit easier 4 years ago, or maybe way before that, but it was easier. And
why was it easier 4 years ago compared to now?
I feel like the houses just weren't that much.
Why weren't the houses as much?
Probably different administration. Who knows? But the thing is that the last 4 years has been very different from what the 4 years that we endured during Trump. Why is Trump's 4 years different than Biden and Kamala's?
Yeah, sure. 4 years? So Kamala Harris and Joe Biden inherited the terrible economic policies and the terrible handling, and I cannot say the word, but I'll say C-19 policies of Donald Trump. Donald Trump passed 2 massive stimulus checks and put us into a massive deficit. And so despite the fact that prices may have felt that like they were lower, and it's kind of those hindsight things, is that we're sitting here going with prices being high because Donald Trump injected almost $2 or $3 trillion into the economy in 1 year, and also passed the stimulus bill in at the end of 2020 in December, with giving out stimulus checks there as well.
Okay, so my rebuttal towards that, a lot of people, I hear a lot of, people on that side saying Trump, made what the current administration is today, right? Pretty much putting the fault of many of things of what happened today or the last 4 years on Trump. But the thing is that Trump only had 4 years of the last 16. Who was it before? It was Barack. Who was it after that? It was Joe Biden.
Yeah, and I would say that Trump inherited the economic policies of Obama. It usually takes a little bit, right? And so that's kind of how it is. The president will, and this is why a lot of Republicans are given the benefit of looking like they're having a good economic policy, even though what we have seen is, for example, when Trump implemented steel tariffs, steel prices went through the roof. And I do not like that Biden kept the steel tariffs in place. But even then, steel prices have been continuously going up, even since Donald Trump implemented, I think it was like, what, a 10 or 20% steel tariff. So this is one of those things is when you look at it, he started and inherited a good economy over from Obama. And then Joe Biden happened to come into play. And you can look at the CPI numbers. It's very easy to look at and see where as soon as Biden came into office, those numbers, inflation numbers started skyrocketing. So I think that this is one of those situations, again, where Republicans are always given the benefit of looking like they're having a better economy simply for the fact that they're coming in on a nice, hot economy.
So then the 4 years is meant to look after the next 4 years. So then anything that's done in the current 4 years cannot be changed, is what you're saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all.
Because if you notice that if they inherited, whatever they're saying, you're saying that they inherited their economy or whatever, why is it taking them such a long time to recover? Why does it take 4 years to recover? Because like if you're coming under Trump and what he's done and what he left us with, it doesn't take 4 years then to change that. Right, but increasingly, it's actually gotten worse over the last 4 years.
And that's the thing. It's not. In the past. Yeah, in the past 4 years, it's not gotten worse. We've actually seen one of the greatest economic recoveries probably in history. It's been absolutely amazing. If you look at CPI numbers, they are back down to about 2.5%. If you look at unemployment numbers, it's starting to get back down to it's still a little high. It's at 4%, but it's not. It's better off than where it was before. A lot of this is due in parts of the Inflation Reduction Act. It invested in jobs, it lowered insulin prices, things like that. If we look at the fact that, for example, wages right now are outpacing inflation. So a lot of good economic policies are leading, even though we have this idea that we feel like we're worse off. Reality is the stock markets are going up as well. So if you look at Fed rates are down to 2%. So I can keep going on and on and on about all of the economic indicators that are showing by all measures, we are in a better state. The problem is that prices are not going to come back down because that is what happens in an economy. Inflation exists. The dollar yesterday is not the same as today. That's just standard understanding of present value of money. And so if you look at how, this is why I tell people, it's like, oh, well, we're going to go back to the time of Donald Trump where we had $2 carton of eggs. That's not going to happen. So I try to tell people that is like, think about when you were growing up and your parents and my grandparents all said the same thing, right? They're like, hey, remember the days of 99-cent gas? Why have we not seen 99-cent gas? Because inflation exists. The dollar today does not exist the same as tomorrow.
So what's interesting that I'm seeing from Trump at the moment is that he wants to make sure that we are self-sustaining so that we can get lower energy prices. That's what I'm hearing from Trump. We would like to be self-sustaining so that we don't have to go to the Middle East or go wherever it is, wherever we're importing it from. I'm pretty sure most of it is from Canada, but some is from the Middle East. We want to keep those ties, but we also want to be self-sustaining. But that's what I'm hearing from Trump right now. I have not heard things of self-sustaining from Kamala at the moment, and I would just like to have things American-made as well, because it would be cheaper for the people.
Distant, I've got a lot of people waiting, so I appreciate our conversation, man. I really do. You were really awesome, and you weren't really too hostile, so I really appreciate that. But I'm gonna move on to the next guest. All right, buddy.
All right.
All right, buddy. Take care. All right, let's go ahead and bring in. Let's see. I don't know who was waiting next. I'm just gonna go down from top, bottom to top. All right. We got Kenzie here. I think is her name. Let's see, waiting for, there we go. Kenzie, what is going on? We were talking about the Hurricane Helene stuff. Is there anything in specific that you wanted to talk about? Do you agree or disagree that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are the better candidate?
Well, you brought up the $750 for everybody. Now, how are they supposed to apply for $750 when they have no cell service, they have no home, they have no data, they have nothing?
Sure. Yeah. So that is a great question. And from all that I have understood is that they have been trying to joint together a lot of the different cell towers. They're bringing in Starlink and trying to do that. That is obviously a major issue.
Actually,
and I would,
who's bringing in Starlink?
So FEMA has brought in some Starlink. It looks like Elon Musk has. I haven't quite looked into
He tried to, and he got told he's not allowed to.
Yeah, was that just by what Elon Musk said? I haven't dug into this. I can look into it right now and see.
I mean, he sent a message out to Pete even to say, hey, even asked for his phone number, everything, to see what was going on, like, because he wants to help. So the fact that people actually want to help and they're not allowing people to help, that's what I have a struggle with.
Yeah, I have not looked into that claim a lot. I'm looking into it right now. Let's see.
I'm supposed to be headed down there next week, so
yeah, I got you. Yeah, no, and I no, 100%. And look, I want to tell people this too. I have mad respect for anybody who's going down there and trying to help out with these recovery efforts. And as far as this, looking here, it says Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg spoke directly to Elon Musk on Friday, part of an effort to counter about federal disaster aid. Blah 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 blah. Okay, this has something to do with no one shutting down the airspace, and FAA doesn't block legitimate rescue and recovery flights. If you're encountering a problem, give me a call, Buttigieg. So Buttigieg, when you were saying about Pete, that's what you're referring to, right? Pete Buttigieg? Okay, yeah. This is kind of one of those things right now where we are there now. Yeah, so this is one of the situations where we have a lot of word going around about a lot of different things, and it's hard to parse through what is actually truly happening, what isn't. And essentially what is being going on is anytime there's a claim that something is happening, it seems like a lot of government officials are stepping in and saying, hey, reach out to me, reapply, do those things like that. It's hard to really combat a lot of these narratives because how do I sit there if someone said that this is happening? How am I supposed to know whether or not it is factual or not? We just don't know. Not to say that they're lying per se, but we don't know if they're lying or telling the truth. Right, we don't know either way, and that's the problem. And so, from every metric we're seeing, though, that there is helicopters going in to rescue people. They are providing different levels of support, whether it's food, water, whatever. So, from what all accounts I could tell is obviously somebody is getting. From all accounts I can tell is that they're getting Starlink down there and getting cell service by merging some of these cell towers and things like that. So, oh, Kenzie, I think you broke up there a little bit, but.
My issue is the money that's going overseas versus going to the American people.
Okay, yeah. So great question. So the one that's going overseas, the one thing about Congress is that when they fund stuff for a whole bunch of different things. It's not like there's necessarily a limited amount per se. Congress has to allocate how much funds to go to these things. So when we talk about overseas, they can send money overseas, and I think even then it's like 2% of the entire budget. It's incredibly small. And you may say, well, it's only 2%. They should still bring it to FEMA. Well, that's fine. And then my counter argument would say, well, then go ahead, then come back to Congress and actually go ahead and fund FEMA. This is the problem right now is that Republicans and Democrats can still come back to Washington, D.C. and fund these things. It's also important if we're talking about misallocating of funds and things like that, we can look and go ahead no further than Republicans who actually voted on the appropriations bill that ended up funding the Shelter and Services Program, which is what a lot of people were up in arms about. That one right there was funded via Republicans. And so both Republicans and Democrats. So we just have to go through and actually we can go through and fund a bunch of different things. It doesn't have to be funded for just one particular thing only, right? So again, I would say that's more of a representative. See what your representative voted for, and if they didn't, then tell them to fund more. Congress holds the purse, not the president, right? Unless you're Donald Trump. In that case, then you try to reallocate funds wherever you see fit. All right, Kenzie, I know you're breaking up a little bit, but I want to tell you, if you can hear me, thank you so much for what you're doing going down there. I do want to get some more guests in. We have a lot of people that are waiting right now, so I'm going to keep funneling through these. But I want you to know, thank you for going down there and helping out the people in North Carolina.
Thanks.
Right, thank you. All right, let's go to the next guest here. We have had, we got a lot of people waiting. Who was next? Who was next? Who was next? Let's go to Ginger. Waiting for Ginger to connect here. Hey, what's going on, Ginger? What's on your mind today?
Hi, can you hear me?
I sure can. How are you doing on this wonderful Saturday?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. I'm a bit in the hot seat, but I'm all right. I'm doing good. So what's on your mind? Who do you think is the better candidate right now, Trump or Harris?
Absolutely Trump.
Okay, what are your reasons for Trump being the better candidate?
I mean, he's actually doing more for the hurricane victims than Biden, Harris. I mean, that's obvious. I have friends that are down there right now that went in with heavy equipment and food and donations, and they're having issues getting in.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly what issues they are particularly facing getting in. This is one of the things we were talking about with the previous guests. We do know that a lot of roads and bridges and things of that nature were washed away. We do know that there are obviously you don't want a whole bunch of people essentially coming into a particular given area trying to give a lot of help because there's only limited amount of space and they're limited in logistics spaces and things like that. It's, for example, one of the reasons why when Biden and Harris said that they wanted to come down and assess the damage that was going on, they didn't want to do that because there's literally a one road. So there's a lot of issues with that. The other thing about being, I lost my train of thought there. So we were saying earlier about Trump doing more. That's what it was, Trump doing more. So one of the things I would say is that I've seen Trump down in Georgia. And even then I thought it was really despicable how he put that wall up in front of the podium stand with all the bricks from the building that was torn down behind him. But furthermore, even if I take away that pedantic argument, I would say if you look at some of the funding, there's a GoFundMe that he put out. First of all, that was put out by his finance advisor. And even then, the problem with that one is nobody has come out and said where exactly those funds are going to go to. So right now, for all we know, is that it's just sitting out there. And this is a huge issue. And keep in mind, we have not actually seen Donald Trump himself donate to that cause, to that GoFundMe. So we actually haven't seen any of Donald Trump's funds going to the actual hurricane victims. For all intents and purposes, it looks like Donald Trump came in, took a photo, and then hightailed it out. Keep in mind, too, it's very important to note this, that other areas were affected besides North Carolina. You had North Carolina, you had Florida, and you had Georgia. But the funny thing is we've not seen Donald Trump go down to Florida. We've only seen him go down to Georgia, and we've only seen him go down to North Carolina. So in all intents and purposes, I think that Biden and Harris are doing far better job of actually providing aid, providing funding. Joe Biden provided 1,000 active duty troops to go down and help with rescue efforts down there with the North Carolina National Guard for the people that were in those mountains. There's actually a whole list you can go through and look at FEMA and see exactly what it is that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have provided. So
I am actually in Georgia.
Oh, good. I hope you're okay. I don't want to say good and then you're in a bad situation, but I hope you're good. So
no, we're good in the area that I am in. We are good. Yeah. It was supposed to impact us directly. It took a turn for the worst, of course, but
sure. Yeah.
I did see where Trump went to Valdosta, which is a couple hours away from us.
Sure. Oh.
I have a bunch of friends that have went down with gas, propane, diapers, formula, food. I did watch Trump's speech when he went down. Was almost 25 minutes long.
Yeah.
I thought it was beautiful. I think that it was awesome that he went down before the administration went down.
Well, and I think the reason why was because that, first of all, it's important to note this too. So Trump went down to Georgia, which was impacted, obviously, but the thing is that they didn't want to hinder rescue efforts. So if whoopsie, if Kamala and Biden ended up going down to Georgia or down to North Carolina or things of that nature, it would have hindered rescue efforts. For example, I mentioned earlier that Biden wanted to go and assess the damage that was going on in North Carolina, but there's literally one road there to get in, and that motorcade would end up having to block off the entire road. And so it just makes sense to go down there. And again, lip service is great, except for the fact that lip service is just that. It's just lip service. And it matters of what's going to happen later on. And after Donald Trump got done with Georgia, we did see Kamala Harris go down, and she was coordinating with a lot of people on the ground. I believe there was a governor there and a whole bunch of other people that she was down there, and she was looking at assessing some of the damages. So it's more of an appearance thing. But again, I go back to, and even then with Donald Trump, it's great. He went down to Georgia, but even then, he admitted himself, by the way, that he did not want to go to North Carolina because he didn't want to hinder efforts. It was kind of a weird flip-flop on that, because he was like, hey, look, I'm in Georgia. And then like he came to Georgia, and then he's like, why is Kamala not up there in North Carolina? And then Kamala goes to North Carolina, and he's like, well, I'm not in North Carolina because I don't want to hinder rescue efforts. It's like, well, wait a minute. Hold on. Wait, that's exactly why Kamala didn't go down initially, because she didn't want to hinder rescue efforts, you know? So,
well, yeah. Kamala was actually at a rally in California doing nothing when Trump was in Georgia.
I actually don't believe she was in California. And let me see here. Kamala Harris rally. I'm trying to remember when that was. It would have been like October. Was it this past week? Probably would have been October 2nd. Let's see. I'll check, because this is the one thing I'd heard, is I heard a lot of people saying that Joe Biden was on a beach, and it was like, he wasn't on a beach. The pictures that were coming out of him supposedly being on a beach were like miles, or they were like months old. Let me see here.
Yeah, well, we haven't seen Joe Biden in a very long time, so.
Well, no, Joe Biden was just yesterday. He was at a press conference. He did a press conference with the press yesterday, and it generated a lot of talking points, because some people were obviously making fun of his age, things like that. But he was very much there. He was there with the press secretary.
Yeah, he might have been there physically, not mentally, for sure.
I got you. All right. Well, look, I've got some guests waiting. I don't mean to be rude, but I really do hope that your family recovers. I know that it's been pretty dramatic down there. I myself have been affected by hurricanes, even just the past couple of months. So I know how dramatic it can be, and I really, really genuinely do hope that you and your family are okay. So.
Thank you. Have a great day. Trump 2024.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right. Let's go to the next one. Let's see here. Let's see. I know Mercedes has been waiting a bit. I'm going to go ahead and bring Mercedes in here. Waiting for Mercedes to jump in. Yo, Mercedes, what's going on, buddy? I saw you waiting for a minute. I apologize. We have a lot of people coming in. I love it. So, who do you have as the better candidate? Sorry, I keep saying Joe Biden and everything else, right? Freudian slip, right? Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, or Trump and Pence. God dang. Yes. I'm all over the place today. Vance, there we go. All right, who do you got?
Trump.
All right, explain to me why. What you got?
Okay. So my deal with Trump and Harris, well, first of all, you can obviously say, look at how we are 3.5 years into her administration compared to how we were in 4 years under Donald Trump's administration. So obviously we were better under Donald Trump's. Secondly, the thing that bothers me most about Kamala is the money we spent on illegal immigration. And Joe Biden coming in the first day of his presidency and canceling 61 executive orders that Donald Trump had put in place, including remain in Mexico, for the control of the border. Okay, so that bothers me. And then for the influx, mass importation of the migrants, and then the cost that's associated with that, that's just been overwhelming. I live in Texas. I see the Greyhound buses coming in daily, and it's just not a pleasant thing. Our governor has sued Biden, as you know. We've put a barbed wire in the middle of the Rio Grande River. I mean, try to do everything because Biden is just, whatever, pro-immigration. I get it. Okay, so another thing is with the pro-immigration is is that, okay, in the House, Mike Johnson passed the SAFE Act, which would make the 2024 election secure in the fact that they said that if 1 in every 100 illegal immigrants vote in this election, that could sway the election to Kamala Harris. And so, if you're not willing,
real quick, because we're going on like 15 different topics. So I'm gonna roll it back a little bit. You were talking initially that when Biden came in, that he rolled back some out of 100 or whatever it was, 61 of Trump's Trump's executive orders.
Right?
Yeah. So one of the things that if you look at with Trump is that Trump actually rolled back over more than 100 environmental rules of the Obama administration. And so,
okay, those are two different situations there, so we can't compare apples to oranges on that.
Okay, so then it's not. So we're clear. Then it's not the simple fact that he rolled back the executive orders. It's that you don't like which executive orders that Biden rolled back from Trump. So you named one of them, that was the stay in Mexico policy, right?
Remain in Mexico.
Remain in Mexico policy. Okay. What were some other policies that he ended up giving? Do you know what all 61 of those were?
Well, Trump had catch and deport, and Biden advocated catch and release into the United States.
Was that in one of the executive orders that was rolled back?
I don't know, but all I know is that after that happened, the next day, it's like Texas was being flooded with caravans of migrants, and as you know, the average cost per migrant is close to $8,000. And if the estimates are still out on how many actually came in, but I mean, let's conservatively say 10 million. Well, if you take 10 million times 8,000, that's $8 billion that we spent on pay for criminals basically coming across our border.
Well, hold on. So first of all, I'm going to call you out right there. First of all, we don't know, okay, first and foremost, the idea of whether or not these are actually criminals. Now, you may automatically assume and say that because they crossed over the border that they are somehow innately a criminal, in which case is not actually true, because that particular policy of them going over there is more of a civil penalty than it is actually a criminal charge. I have to look at it. There's more in depth.
It is a criminal charge. It is a misdemeanor.
It is actually. I'm not going to get into the weeds on it because I don't have all the stats in front of me to go over which way or the other. But
in Mexico, it's a felony, actually.
Okay. So rolling over and they're coming through the border. Are you trying to the idea that you're going to stigmatize every single person that's coming across the border, that they're a criminal? Okay, there are policies in place that when they get here, that if they are found, they will be picked up, they will be sent, and there may be an ICE detainer or not. So I'm not going to sit here and entertain this idea that they're necessarily inherently a criminal just because they crossed the border. Okay, there are processes in place. We should absolutely have processes in place for immigration. We should have that border funding bill that ironically Republicans had ended up knocking out.
Which is understandable, and I understand why they did that,
So then if they did that, then we can't necessarily sit there and say that it's Democrats' fault when Republicans were the ones that killed that bill.
No, we can, because Joe Biden is the one that killed all the executive orders. You have to admit.
Do you realize that executive orders can be over? You do realize executive orders can be overturned by the next administration, correct? So
I'm well aware of that.
So then the administration prior to then is at fault for not actually putting those into law. And that is why Joe Biden was able to turn them over. I don't see necessarily a problem with that. He was just doing what he was allowed to do. It's Trump's fault that he didn't actually put those into policy, right?
Well, you have to look what Trump was up against during his administration. He could only do so much. I mean, he
had a Republican majority in both houses at one point.
At one point, yes, that is correct. But what I'm trying to say, bear with me. So then you have the SAFE Act, right? That the Mike Johnson passed in the House. It was an election integrity bill that would make it more concrete that illegal immigrants would not be voting in our election. And for a fact,
we already have laws on the books though for that. They're not allowed to do it already.
No, they do it. They do it all. They just announced yesterday that the election workers are being penalized.
So I want to be very careful because there is some I've tried doing some debunking things on here, and I've had so I want to make sure we're very careful in how we approach this on this, because it can be a TOS topic. So I want to be very careful on this. So here's what I'll say to this: as far as what they can do, undocumented immigrants can absolutely vote in local elections depending on the state. Okay, and local city elections. What they cannot do is they cannot vote in federal elections. That right there is a felony. Okay, so I want that to be abundantly clear that yes, there are some instances where they may find some things where they're able to vote in these local elections. They may be on some of the registration and things like that. There's a whole bunch of things like that. I'm not going to sit here, and I want to be very careful in how I approach this topic due to this. Is there some other policy outside of this? I'm trying to get away from this on the TOS side. So is there something else to do with some of Biden's policies that you don't like?
Let me just say, if this policy, I won't mention what it is.
I got you.
If Chuck Schumer would not even bring it for a vote, and President Biden already said he wouldn't sign it, I mean, that's like saying, okay, there's absolutely no reason why it shouldn't be signed. That's just like saying, I'm not going to sign it just because I don't want to, because of course.
I'd have to look at exactly what it was that Biden said, but I can tell you right now that there's no point in doing this. And again, we go back to this particular bill that was also one of the reasons that I believe was laid out, that they didn't want to, they were trying to do a shutdown because of this particular bill, which ironically, the shutdown is one of the primary reasons why FEMA is running out of funds, because the Republicans decided to try to hold the government hostage without actually passing this. So they passed a continuing resolution, but the continuing resolution had no FEMA aid in it. And so guess what? Now FEMA, having to deal with this hurricane situation, is now struggling for future hurricanes until funding actually comes through and Republicans do their job. Republicans have not done their job with this, which is why FEMA is hurting.
That was the way it was originally, but then they separated the two and voted on it on a standalone bill.
What do you mean? The funding bill? There's like a tuning resolution. We did not actually fund. We temporarily funded the government.
FEMA bill and the bill we're not talking about.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay,
but the
they
FEMA
separated the two, so it was two. So they had to pass the CR.
So yes, they had to pass the CR to get the government temporarily funded only on those key important parts. I don't know all the parts off the top of my head, but we could absolutely go through them. But I don't have them off the top of my head, but what it was a continuing resolution, and that funded the government for a little bit, I think through December, or what was November, December. Right. And so the thing is in that bill, though, there was no FEMA funding. So there was no FEMA funding for that. And so if Republicans cared about the FEMA funding, then they can absolutely come back to Congress. It's not too late for them to do that. They can come back to Congress. They're not out of office until I believe January of next year. So come back to office. Go ahead, pass a funding bill. Why are they not doing that? I think the answer is pretty obvious on why they're not doing it. It's a political issue. They like having this as an optics win. And even though I don't think it's an optics win, I think it's a miscalculated move.
Well, they're all on recess right now anyway. I mean, they're all...
Nothing is stopping them from coming back in session.
Exactly. But them. I mean, I know, but a lot of them are not. And this happened, this FEMA funding or whatever, this storm happened before that bill. I mean, it happened after that bill was passed.
And again, they can still come back. That doesn't change the fact that they can come back to Congress right now and pass a funding bill. But they do not want to do that because they know, or they think they know, that this is going to be an optics win. They're too busy on the campaign trail worrying about their own seat in Congress than they are worried about their own constituents. So, hey man, look, it was a good conversation. Don't get it twisted, but I do have some other people that really want to get in here. But don't get it twisted. Great conversation, man. I really appreciate you coming in, but we're gonna have to move on to the next one, buddy. All right?
Okay.
All right, take care, buddy. All right, let's go on to the next guest here. I think we have H2 is next. There we go. Waiting for H2 to come in. All right, we're gonna move on to the next one here. All right, let's go to the next one. I think we've got Will next, trying to connect here. Will, what's going on, buddy? We finally got you connected. How are you doing on this beautiful Saturday?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
You was talking about the immigrants and stuff. I live actually down here in Tennessee. Okay. Very, very close to the whole shelters.
Sure.
Right now that's actually getting put up by other Tennessee residents and Florida residents.
Yeah.
FEMA really ain't helping too much. It's mostly they're organizing, but they're not helping. But you was talking about the FEMA bill.
Sure.
Why? Wasn't they a food stamps shelter EBT act back in September of 22 that the House Speaker, there's literally bills saying they're sending it to migrants?
What do you I'm sorry. I'm trying to follow you on this. If you're talking about a bill in 2022, that would have been under a whole different fiscal year than the one that's being funded today. That funding would have been
today though.
You said 2022.
But the money's there for emergency purposes. It doesn't move. It stays there for emergency purposes.
So it depends. So again, this goes back to how the House appropriates these particular bills. Funding.
Don't backtrack.
I'm not backtracking. No, because what I'm saying is you're saying it sits there. This isn't inherently true. In fact, Donald Trump used some of this FEMA disaster relief to go towards the border for when there was an overcrowding in shelters. So it does end up moving.
Yeah, to make more shelters for the kids.
In some cases, that funding ends up getting moved without Congress, even though Congress is the one that's supposed to move that funding. It's not supposed to move out of these essential buckets. Once these buckets are in place by Congress, only Congress should be the one to be able to move those funds. But Donald Trump did that without congressional approval, which is what he has done time and time again. He did it with the DOD for the border wall, for example. So when we talk about the
gotta love the wall.
are you
done? Can
I'm going to keep going. So one of the things, that's fine. I'm going to keep going. So when you talk about the FEMA funding, it's important to understand that the FEMA funding is done by Congress. And furthermore, the Shelter and Services Program that was passed by a majority of Republicans. In fact, 25 of 24 Republicans in the Senate ended up passing that bill, and there was about only 54 in the House that ended up saying no to the bill. Of which, in North Carolina, in the House, only one representative ended up turning away that program. So the Republicans ended up funding that Shelter and Services Program that took away that funding for the Disaster Relief Fund, which is that fund. So go ahead. Now you were saying.
So you're saying that none of these of this fiscal year, we didn't spend no money on putting immigrants using the same FEMA money you say Donald Trump used, and Joe Biden didn't use none of the.
I didn't say he didn't use any of it. I didn't say that at all. And in fact, what I'm saying is actually quite the opposite. I'm saying that I'm actually quite saying.
See, you're not letting me talk.
Sorry,
man.
go ahead. Good. I'll let you talk.
It's okay. You just
okay. So I'll continue. So if you're going to throw a fit, that's fine. I'll continue. So in fact, what I'll go ahead and do is I'll go ahead and mute you, and I'll disconnect you because of that. So I'll let everybody know exactly what it was that happened. So there are certain buckets when it comes to FEMA funding that what we end up doing. Oh my goodness, my lighting is all off. That's all good. I'll get it here soon. Okay, it's not going to work. It's fine. My head looks like a glowing globe. So anyways, we have certain buckets, right? And what we end up doing is we end up funding various programs. It's not like we have a wallet with just money in it. We have different buckets that you can end up funding for different things, okay? So that's exactly what that is. So let's go ahead and we're going to bring in BoomMan. All right, BoomMan, what's going on, buddy?
Hello.
Yes, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm in agreement with you, and I just want to let the panel, well, not panel, because I'm the only one here.
You're good, buddy.
I'm 27 years old. I want people in the comments to understand that. I am 27 years old, and the fact that it's older generations that have voted way before me do not understand how the government works.
Wild.
Is insane.
And they want to get rid. Keep in mind, they want to get rid of the They want to get rid of the Department of Education. Donald Trump is on record saying that. I want it to be clear. Donald Trump is on record saying that he wants to get rid of the Department of Education. Yet they can't even understand how basic government funding works.
It's insane. Like, you can literally go to FEMA.gov, go to About, and you click what you're trying to look for, and it'll say rumor. And then it'll say what the actual fact is. Yep. And so if I'm about to explode, because I work overnight. So I watched, the strike when it happened at midnight. Yep. So I was watching it at all. I was looking at people's lives, talking about it. And I'm like, let me look at this for myself. Because I'm one that I don't really like to get into politics. Sure. But it's very simple to do a simple search. And these are credited sites. Anything with .gov, anything .edu. These are credible sites. We've learned this in high school, if that, middle school. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
And I'll tell you too. By the way, you don't even have to look towards FEMA. If you want to sit there and say I don't believe FEMA, well, guess what? You can go and look at. There's a nice little picture that I have up to my right. You can see all the different governors from all these different states who said we're receiving the most amount of aid that we would need. We don't need any more aid.
Exactly.
And so you don't even have to, if you don't like that particular website, you can go to anybody else and look at these particular governors. You can look at even, I think Ron DeSantis is even on record saying that he's receiving some funding. So it's amazing to me, the lack of knowledge on why this is taking place. And then again, and to our previous guest, when you look at it, there are certain fiscal years where things get moved around. This was the whole point of what Donald Trump wanted. Donald Trump wanted to get rid of duplicative programs. So he himself wanted to do this as well, but he had to go through congressional approval. The one thing Biden's doing right that I think that Trump was doing wrong is Trump used the government as his personal piggy bank, and Joe Biden is trying to do things the right way. He's sitting there going, hey, look, I need Congress. I can't just go start moving funds around willy-nilly because I want to.
Yeah, and I also say this for the people with she's only giving $750. That $750 is like it's almost an automatic. Here you go.
Yes.
So after that, then, like you were saying, Congress, they have to come together. Let's see how much we can actually give these people. Because I think people are trying to, they might as well give them a whole house. Like they want them to just fund every single thing. That's just not how it works. Oh my goodness. It's embarrassing.
It is, man. Hey, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate the comments. I love having this kind of break where I get somebody that comes in and is like, hey man, look, this is good. This is wild. I appreciate it, man, because it helps me calm down a little bit. My blood pressure goes nuts.
All right,
man. Thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right, take care. All right, so our next guest up, let's have in, I believe it's Norbert. Waiting for Norbert to jump in here. Norbert, what's going on, buddy? We got you connected now. How are you doing on this Saturday?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. How are you doing?
Good, good. I am hanging in there. So what's on your mind? What do you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, I'm more so for like the American, like I just want everybody's life to be better. But for you yourself, what has the vice president, what has she done in almost the last 4 years that made you feel like she's better for the job?
Sure, absolutely. So one of the things is I'm not afraid to say this. Okay, there's a couple of sections here. So one is I think that by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's own Inflation Reduction Act policies that they put in place, they brought down inflation down to 2.5% from 2022 at 9%. So they were able to bring it down there. We've seen record stock market prices going up. Dow Jones, S&P 500. We've seen different stock market indices where it's gone absolutely crazy. Then we can also look at Kamala Harris's congressional record where she actually cast the most tie-breaking votes. We can look at the Northern Triangle where we actually saw immigrants coming from those particular countries lessen. Now, I'd have to look more into those numbers, get you more further details, but from my understanding, that's what it took place. We can also look at some of her future policies that she wants to implement that I think are going to be super great, where it's going to benefit most lower income families and not benefit the top 1%. We went through on the last live stream and went through and looked at the tax bracket that Donald Trump implemented with the Tax Cut Acts. And guess what? The Tax Cuts Act ended up benefiting the top 1% by saving the 10 million bracket. It was like 10 million and above. They ended up saving over $600,000 on their tax bills. But the other thing that's important to note is that those tax credits actually ended up the tax credits ended up benefiting the top class, but the tax credits ended up getting removed from the lower class. Now, I'm still having to look into that process, so I'm willing to be proven wrong on that if you have that. And then furthermore, the future ones about the child tax credits, I love that by Kamala Harris. The small business tax credits, love that. I've always said that tax credits are the way to the middle. So what I see in the past 4 years is the fact that we have had an amazing joint effort between Biden and Harris to bring our economy back from some of the terrible policies that were passed by Donald Trump at the tail end of his presidency.
Okay, so I mean, we can sit here and talk about policy, but I think if we kind of crunch down the numbers and we look at life under President Trump and on life under the current presidency, life then was definitely better, right? Because Average American, even if you weren't making as much money, you can still survive. You can pay your bill, you still have money left, right?
Well,
In
right
today's
now,
day and age, you can't do that.
well, right now, our wages are outpacing inflation. They have been outpacing inflation for about the past couple of years, I believe. Wages have outpaced inflation, and the problem that we're having right now is that people want prices. This is kind of the issue that's going on, is people want prices to come back down to where they were in 2018, 19, and stuff like that. But by that same measure, we would love to have prices back to the 90s, wouldn't we? Right? Where prices of gas was 90 cents, right? We would love that, except there's one problem. Inflation exists. A dollar yesterday is not the same price of the dollar today. We have inflation. Inflation to some degree is a good thing. What we want wages to go past how quickly inflation goes up. So if inflation is going up by 2% and wages are going up by 5%, well, then wages are in essence are outpacing inflation, which is what we want. We want those wages to outpace inflation and try to provide more buying power to our pockets. So that's why I was saying is when you look at—
Isn't that something that we had before? Isn't that something that we had before, though? Before we got under this current presidency? Where, like, life, cost of living was going up. But then again, the pay wasn't that great, but you can still survive under. If we talk about inflation, it really went up under this presidency, right?
It went up under Biden only for the simple fact that Donald Trump ended up passing a stimulus bill at the tail end of his presidency in December of 2020. If you look at the inflation, the CPI numbers, it ended up going up right around the January to March metric. And I've said this before, is that what ends up happening is a lot of these policies take time to come through. So
so what you are saying is that the stimulus bill that was passed to help the Americans out is what caused the inflation?
The stimulus bill that helped Americans out is what leads to inflation, because it provided, I believe, $1,200 or something along those lines of just raw checks to the American people. What did that do? We also saw record travel numbers in 2020. The American people had a lot more money in their pockets while prices were still down here. And so what did that mean? They were able to buy more of these products. And so what companies had to do is they had to adjust their prices, basic econ, right? They had to adjust their prices to make sure that, hey, look, we have stuff flying off the shelves. We have to increase our prices. So they increased their prices, which led to inflation. So that is exactly what happened. They put more money into the market.
That was during the time where America needed the fund. A lot of people weren't working. I mean, there was COVID. You were freaking, quarantine. You couldn't work. You couldn't get paid. So,
be careful on how we say that C word. We just have to be careful on your.
Okay, my apologies, right? But I mean, today's we can say now that they send out a lot of money to American, but at the same time, under the last, almost the last 4 years, billions of dollars have been sent out to foreign countries, right? And Americans are still here struggling. So we cannot sit here and say a whole bunch of money.
Do you think that we can fund two things at once? Do you think we can fund foreign aid as well as local domestic aid? In fact, I mean, if you look at the budget, foreign aid is 2% of the entire budget.
Yes, we can. And that's the whole point of having allies, right? You still got to look after your allies.
So how much should we fund to foreign aid? How much should we put towards foreign aid? Where do you think is the great part?
I mean, I can't quite exactly tell you this is how much we have to send to foreign aid and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's common sense that it's not right to be sending all this money, all these, food and stuff to all these other countries while your own people, the one they are paying the taxes, right? But
we're doing funding here to help pay for some of those people who need those benefits, right? For example,
exactly. I mean, the people in North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, they got $750, right?
So the $750 is just a temporary relief. It is not something that is going to be the end all be all. In fact, if you are concerned about the FEMA funding, I again would encourage you to call your Republican representative and say, hey, go back to Congress.
Well, a lot of people actually got denied those money. A lot of people that actually applied to those actually got denied the funds.
This has been a rumor that's been going around for quite a while. We have not seen any actual metrics that have come out to actually prove that. Hold on one second. I'm gonna pull up the actual link here. Hold on. Let me pull it up here.
Yep.
So
I'm pretty sure if you go on a FEMA website and
you can go ahead. I'm reading straight from it. It said, if my application is denied, there's nothing I can do about it, which is not so. Every applicant is entitled to appeal any FEMA decision or award amount. If you disagree with FEMA's decision, you may appeal. Appeals must be submitted within 60 days. If you have any questions about how to file, blah, 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 blah. So
if your application is denied, as an American,
if it's denied, But
And
again, you have to. The reason why is because that assistant.
This is my point here. As an
Yes.
American, you pay anywhere from 10 to 37% in federal taxes.
It's because, so I'll tell you why it may have been denied. Okay, I'll go over exactly what the $750 is for. It says serious needs assistance is money to pay for emergency supplies like water, food, first aid, breastfeeding supplies, infant formula, diapers, personal hygiene items, or fuel for transportation. You may be eligible for serious needs assistance if you or someone in your home is a U.S. citizen, non-citizen national, or qualified non-citizen, which we can get into that because that's a whole nother thing. Your home is Lycoming. So there's also certain counties that are covered under this $750. So if you're outside this county, then it's certainly possible that you may not have qualified. But it doesn't necessarily inherently mean that you're not going to qualify for other assistance. Right now, the $750, I believe, are for the most hardest hit areas, and that is why they're getting that, and it's probably going to expand. And again, the only one who can really change this is by going to your Republican representative and trying to get them to change that.
Okay, so so a lot of the money that was actually allocated for FEMA, they created I forgot the name of it.
The Shelter and Services Program?
Yeah.
So the Shelter and Services,
that's also on the FEMA, and those money were moved.
So they were not.
There was well over 600.
They were not. Yes. So I can actually address that because I did a whole tweet on that. The $650 million was already allocated. It was allocated in March of this year. Republicans en masse supported that particular funding, that particular program. So again, if we look at that program, and keep in mind two things here. Just because it's been funded, first of all, Republicans own that. Okay, they want to sit here and complain about the Shelter and Services Program. They're the ones who funded it, first and foremost. Second of all, there are several different buckets. If me and you can agree that we can fund multiple things, the same thing can happen with FEMA. You can sit there and allocate as much funds as you would like to FEMA. And again, if funds are a big issue, call your congressman back to Washington to go ahead and fund FEMA. But what they're doing is they're using this disaster as a political tool.
Okay, so let's not look at maybe the hurricane, right? Let's look at what happened in Maui, where people got $700. Can you tell me what the current presidency did after people got $700? What were the aid provided?
I've got it right here. I believe they provided almost $3 billion. Let me pull it up here. Hold on. Let me pull it up because I have the exact amounts here because I remember looking this up I think it was last night. Let's see here. Okay, here. 1 year after the Maui wildfires, this was just in August. It looks like it says here, and this is, again, take it for what it's worth. This is Washington. This is the whitehouse.gov, but you could easily click on these links and research me and fact check me if I'm wrong. 1 year following the devastating wildfires in Maui, Hawaii, the Biden-Harris administration has continued to pursue a coordinated and comprehensive federal response, working side by side with their state and local partners to ensure long-term recovery. In addition to continuing to assist the people of Maui in their greatest time of need, including nearly $3 billion in federal support to response, recovery, and rebuilding efforts, the administration is also working to build the long-term resilience of Hawaii and making significant investments to prevent tragedy like this from happening again. And it goes on and on and on. It lists out all of the different things. One of the things here is in the immediate aftermath of the fires, more than 4,000 displaced households sheltered in hotels. Today, the number is down to 40. They brought it down from 4,000 to 40.
Okay, so I cannot fact check that, right? But why would it take a year for your government to take care of it?
It's not taking a year from it's in the past.
1 year after.
1 year after, that is the achievement that they have been able to do. They have, in that entire year, have been able to provide $3 billion in funding in that entire year. Up to. It's not like 1 year and then they're throwing $3 billion down.
Now, it took her, right? This is another thing, too. It took her. No, okay, well, let's talk about this, right? Taking care of our troops. It's a big thing, right? Looking after the military, right? Why did the White House oppose to raising up the junior enlisted's money for them to actually have a well-paid, to get paid? That was on the White House. That's under our current presidency. They pushed.
You're talking about junior enlisted raising wages?
Yeah, and it happened this year. So once again, we can talk about.
I'm reading right here. It says a final decision. This is because, again, it goes back to Congress. Exactly, like Redbird Beard said.
Nothing to do with Congress.
Yes, it does. I'm literally reading from this article. It says decision on junior enlisted pay boost not expected until November, and it says a final decision by Congress on extra pay boost for junior enlisted troops in 2025 isn't likely to come until after the November elections, a key Senate lawmaker said on Monday. So this is, again, it's by Congress. Congress passes the budget. Anything to do with dollar amounts has to do with Congress. There are very limited things that the president can really do.
The White House. Congress actually approved that, and I actually followed that because I'm a veteran myself, right? So I followed up all on that. Congress actually passed that. It got to the White House, and the White House had a strong push back on it. So if you want to talk about, we can see here and look after. We can see here and look after people that are coming into the country.
Do you know what the bill was? Because I'm looking right here at this one, and it's saying it's not expected until November. You're saying that it was already passed. So I'm looking. Okay, here it is. House approves $2.5 billion for junior enlisted raises, which may be $800 million too little. I'm looking through here. Spending bill that includes 2.5. The House approved its version of the fiscal 2025 Defense Department appropriations bill on Friday. Let's see here. I'm going through here. I'm looking through here real quick. Junior enlisted, let's see, September. I don't want to spend too much time on this. Trying to look here. May, June, May. If you have something, let me know. Send it to me in there. But as far as I'm understanding,
I don't. Like I
don't
said,
see anything about Senate.
I can't fully speak on like policy number or whatever it is, but I follow the whole thing. I follow the live, the Congress and everything. And once they finally came to an agreement, they sent it to the White House. The White House was strongly opposed to actually raising up the money for the junior enlisted, right? So we're talking about taking care of our troops and stuff like that. And they were totally against it. Those are American. Those are also people in the military also pay taxes. If you can sit down here, right, and regardless if they're illegals or not, whatever people want to get into when it comes to that, right? There's those people that are actually being provided shelter, food, thousands of dollars in food stamp.
Okay,
they are being taken care of, right? They are being taken care of. But you cannot take care of your troops.
So if we're going to talk about the troops, or what do you want to talk about how Donald Trump has totally disrespected our troops by going to Arlington National Cemetery and doing a political photo op in there? Because we can talk about that as well.
Well, then we can also talk about how the current president actually, after giving out a Medal of Honor, did not even have the respect to shake the person's hand and walked off.
Oh, okay. So are we going to talk then? Okay, if we're going to talk about the Medal of Honor, do we want to talk about do we want to talk about Donald Trump and how Donald Trump refused? Donald Trump said that the Medal of Freedom is better than the Medal of Honor, and actually said that those people are better off.
And regardless on how you want to put it, I actually have friends that actually work under President Trump that were in the military, right? And President Trump would actually take time out of his day to go over there and spend time with them. It wouldn't be a lot of time. It may be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but that shows that.
So that's the we're going to go with. I could probably find like many other videos of Joe Biden going to different troops and saluting them and everything else.
I mean, you can see numerous that. I'm talking about specifically that.
Specifically, Trump just went and shook hands with the troops, and that's it. That seals the deal that he supports the troops.
That shows a lot of things, and also Trump actually I think like probably at most 2 days after the hurricane, he was actually here. Now, I think when you mentioned the Starlink things earlier.
No, okay. So hold on. First of all, he was not in North Carolina. Trump was in Georgia. He was in Georgia,
and he was actually the one that got in contact. Well, I believe so. He the one that actually got in contact with Elon Musk in terms of freaking bringing electricity and how you call it.
So FEMA also provided the same thing. FEMA ended up funding some of the generators as well. It's a net neutral, and from all accounts that we're able to see, Donald Trump has not actually donated any real meaningful support to those hurricane victims. He set up a $25 GoFundMe that is still yet to prove exactly where they're going to get the funding. He has not actually donated any money to that GoFundMe, and in fact, a lot of his buddies ended up boosting the numbers on that GoFundMe to make it look as if they raised a whole lot of money, when in fact all it is, they had big money donors from Trump's akin.
So what was the vice president was doing? Because at the end,
what was the vice president doing? The vice president was coordinating with Joe Biden.
Regardless if you're running or not, she's still the vice president. She's still for the American people.
Yes, and do you think that she was not?
What was she doing?
So do you think she was seriously just sitting behind a desk and not doing anything?
Well, I'll tell you what she was doing. She was actually on the West Coast raising money for her campaign.
Do you know that the internet exists? Do you know that the internet exists and phones exist?
She was actually on a podcast that's ran by it's pretty much a SES podcast, right?
Sure. That's I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Again, do you think that like any time that a president or a vice president is not at that particular disaster zone, that somehow they are not able to coordinate efforts and do multiple things at the same time?
Did she do anything else? Can you tell me like a maybe like a news interview where she kind of put out the American people, I'm here with you. I'm gonna be looking out.
Let me see. I'll look here. When did the hurricane hit? October 2nd. I'll pull up an article here. Let's say I'll just pull up October 2nd. And I don't know if she was on the West Coast, but I think it's neither here nor there. Let's see. Kamala Harris, October 2nd. So this was 2 days ago. So this was on October 3rd. They actually surveyed the damage at Hurricane Helene. So right on October, this was like a couple of days after maybe. So they went and surveyed the damage right then and there. On October 2nd. Look right here. You said Vice President Harris speaks about damage caused by Hurricane Helene in Augusta, Georgia on October 2nd. So she was there on October 2nd. So I don't know what you're referring to. I don't know if you wanted her there in the middle of the hurricane.
When did the hurricane happen?
Let's see. Hurricane. My goodness. Let me see. Trying to pull it up here. Oh, crap. I think it happened like over the weekend maybe. Time. That's not what I'm looking for. It looks like 4 days. It happened 4 days ago. So on October 1st, it landed and it caused all that devastation. So she was there like pretty much the day after. Or no, not the day after. It had been a couple of days after that landed.
Well, it actually didn't. It happened last weekend, so it wasn't October 1st.
Okay, so it was a couple of days after. Either way, she ended up coming down there and she ended up surveying the damage a couple of days after. She just wasn't there as the hurricane was hitting in the middle of a raincoat.
Days after, the person that you voted for as a vice president put you in the back burner, went for a fundraiser, did a podcast, and
nothing says that she actually put her on the back burner. You haven't still addressed the fact that she
was actually on a podcast and she was actually doing a fundraiser. I mean, don't deny the fact.
I'm not sitting there denying the fact. What I'm saying is that she can be doing multiple things. Just because she's at a fundraiser doesn't mean that she's not sitting there after the fundraiser on the phone with Joe Biden. Can I prove that? No, I can't necessarily prove that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that she wasn't either. Hey, look, I know we're ending this on like a really wild kind of note, but I've got to really get in another guest, man. You have had a good conversation, so don't get it twisted. But I do appreciate our conversation, buddy. All right.
I appreciate it. Thanks for
all right. Take care, man. All right, let's bring in Lancey Boy because I know he's been waiting for a long, hot minute. Lancey Boy, what's going on? I know you've been waiting for a hot minute. Thank you for waiting, and I appreciate it, buddy. How you been?
Man. I'm good, bro. Appreciate it.
Good. So what's on your mind?
Well, technically, we're going into this claim that Kamala and Watts are better candidates, right? Well, for me, I think I would say, I would totally agree that Donald Trump is far worse or not better than Kamala and Watts. But I don't think that we portray Kamala as way better than him.
How so? What you got?
In policies. I would say, would you agree that every policy that she proclaimed is good?
Would I agree that? Sorry, say it again.
I was saying, can you state, do you think every policy that she stands on is way better than Donald Trump?
Yes. Well, not every policy. I wouldn't say every policy, but I would say that, for example, if I were to look at and I can't say it, but I'll say it, the pew pew, right? I can't say the name of it, the pew pew ban. That I don't necessarily agree with, but I'm also realize and understand that getting something like that passed through Congress that is more than likely going to be split. It's a non-issue for me. But I think other ones that you have with her are much dramatically different. Donald Trump was to implement tariffs and oil as a way to somehow tame inflation, even though those are counterintuitive. Whereas Kamala Harris wants to look to raise taxes on those in the upper class and help decrease the tax burden on the lower class via tax credits. So I think these are two complete opposite policies. So yeah, I think they're completely different.
All right. How about her international affairs? Their international stuff.
I'm a little weak on the international affairs. I ain't even going to sit there and lie to you on that. But I can attempt to work and play here a little bit. Let's see where we can go with this. I'm a little weak on this, so I'm going to admit on this.
No. It's just for me personally, man. I think they are better candidates for us domestically, but I think they are. I would encourage you to do further research. I think they'll be tough for us in terms of our international affairs. I think they will. Oh yeah, you could go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think when it comes down to Putin Putin. When it comes down to Trump working with our foreign leaders, it seems that he favors just straight up I'm trying to work around what I'm saying here, but trying to get rid of Iran essentially and he's also trying to work with our adversaries like Putin,
Right.
for example. We saw how he worked with Zelensky. I forgot about this, and I love talking because it's starting to remember things. When Zelensky was down here recently, he ended up saying, that it's got to work both ways, which isn't inherently a bad thing, but you're there with Zelensky as well. And Zelensky's like, yo, what the hell, man? Like, we're supposed to be allies. How is this even supposed to be both ways? Because at the same time, like, there's only one objectively bad person here in this affairs who actually invaded their country, invaded that sovereignty. So, and I don't want to get into like which one is which. I know I kind of implied that, so I understand if you want to get into it as best as I can, I will try. But again, my point is that when we look at how Donald Trump is, Donald Trump, even on the UN, I don't remember what year it was, ended up getting laughed at in the UN Assembly. So, yeah.
But on the other hand, I think Kamala Harris doesn't have the political will to. I just don't think he has like the same political will as the other party. I think he has a bunch of she would be tending to just listen to different technocrats and shadow cabinets, and I just think I wouldn't say that she's a puppet, because she's a smart woman. Okay,
yeah,
she's a smart woman.
But
I just
she was an AG, so I would an attorney. I would hope she's a little smart.
Yeah, definitely. But I just don't think, in terms of international affairs, she would have like a really, really good political will. Because, for example, man, like what we see here in the news is always like about Russia, what else? Ukraine, Israel, Palestine. One of the biggest wars that has been happening right now is South China Sea. Do you know that it's existing?
Are you talking about the Taiwanese issue and China trying to invade Taiwan?
Well,
and all that stuff?
that's not only the Taiwan. It's the sea, South China Sea, where it's the Southeast Asia against Japan. And right now, the Biden administration is trying to put the Navy in there and trying to provoke war, but kind of not. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think again, it goes back to trying to stay strong with your allies, right? I mean, if you have like what happened.
Well, that's the thing, man. We're trying to do strong with our allies. We're trying to put like a lot of American bases to those countries, but those countries doesn't want our involvement. That's the thing.
Well, I mean, I don't think that America could just go into any country and just plant their flag and say, "I'm here, get over it."
Definitely. But if you come and think of it, let me give you an example. If you want to look at it, when Kamala Harris visited the Philippines, I think 2 years ago, there was like a big rally. You can search it up. There was like a big rally. Just people are mad at her. People are mad at her because. And
this is the hard thing about it is like I'm gonna have to look up a lot of these topics.
Yeah.
Is there anything like domestically that you wanted to talk about specifically with this administration?
Okay. Yeah. I think, man. Well, I think you during her debate, she mentioned about like if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, about like the $10,000 housing assistance.
Say that again.
Like the housing assistance that will be she'll be her policy will be aiding down payment for people.
Yes, it was first-time home buyers, and I think one thing we're going to see with that is, and the one thing I like about her policy versus Trump is that Trump seems to unveil like a new policy every weekend, or with Kamala Harris, what she has done is every time that she goes into a lot of these new interviews, she'll end up kind of peeling back that onion a little bit and saying, okay, this is how we're going to actually do that. And so what we see is with these first-time home buyers, I suspect there's going to be some kind of a means testing along with it. It's not going to be something that's just going to be, for example, we found out that the child tax credit, and I'll be honest with you on this, is that the child tax credit is for the first year of the child's life is what she had said. So I do think that some of what she's going to end up doing is trying to refine those as we get closer to the election. And so, yeah, I don't know if you like it or not on the terms of the first-time down payment or first-time home buyer down payment assistance programs. I typically do like it. I think that there's going to be probably some kind of means test, and that's why I'm generally okay with it, though I'm still a little bit hesitant as well.
Yeah. I think it's just like personally for me, I think it's just a really broad policy, although the intention is nice. The intention is great. But I think in terms of like the policy process and how would this get implemented, I think it'll be like I think it'll be problematic. Because in terms of like weighing like how do we determine like first time home buyer? right? Like
That'd
how
be easy to determine, I'm sure.
I
I mean,
mean,
they do
yeah,
it
I
all the time
totally
now,
understand.
right?
I totally understand if you're a first-time home buyer, but like, what are the certain categories that comes with it? What if somebody makes like $300,000 a
Well, that's what I'm
year,
saying.
but is like a
It would
first-time home
probably be
buyer?
means tested, right? I mean, again,
Yeah.
taking on how Kamala Harris has already said that she doesn't really want to enrich the upper class. My assumption would be that it would probably be that you would have to have like under a certain threshold of income in order to qualify for that particular credit or apply for that particular. And again, it's a tax credit,
Definitely.
and so it's not even really something that's going to be like, a lot of people kind of mix that up, that it's going to be money right back in your pocket. So keep in mind that the assumption is that you're going to end up having to pay for this down payment assistance via some kind of way, and then you're going to get reimbursed in essence through that tax credit at the end of the year. So, but yeah. So is there any other thing else you wanted to talk about on that? I gotta start wrapping it up soon too, by the way, guys. I got another show on Twitch that I do here in about the next 40 minutes, and it's gonna be our Saturday night Saturday weekly thing. So anyway, sorry, is there anything else you wanted to talk about, bud?
I mean, we can talk a lot of this, but I totally respect your time. Probably
Yeah, I
next
appreciate
time.
it, bud.
Probably next time, man, we can talk more about
Absolutely,
it.
man. Absolutely.
Probably, I think you're running out, but we could go in depth more next time. But
Yeah,
it's
more
a
next
great-
time.
Yeah, definitely,
Follow
man.
me, drop a follow. We'll talk better next time. All right.
All right, I appreciate that. Have a great day.
All right, you too, buddy. All right, we got enough time for Mr. Packman. We got about 10 minutes. All right, Packman, what's going on, buddy? We got about 10 minutes, so let's see what you got. What's on your brain? What's on your mind?
No, I was just referring to, like, I was just gonna respond to what you just said. Now,
Yeah, good.
yeah, again, like, it's reasons why a lot of those people were denied, but I think what people are frustrated with is that the fact that they're not doing as much as I think they can do to help, right? Like, for example, people say, like, okay, 700, the whole 750 figure is just the initial pay. I understand that.
Sure.
I think that there needs to be a more robust response, federal response, like screw the laws, screw whatever the limitations are with respect to FEMA right now. We need an aggressive response, the same way that we can dish out all these different fundings for other situations overseas and with respect to migrants and stuff like that. Let's dish it out for American citizens.
Yeah. So let me kick back on that a little bit. So first of all, again, I go back to the aid that's going to Ukraine is like 2%, first and foremost. Second of all, even then, okay, the way that this gets passed and the way to get more funding is to tell your Republican Congress members to go back to Washington and actually pass a funding bill. Why FEMA is struggling to get funds for future hurricanes is mainly due to the fact that, one, this hurricane was extremely devastating. And so based on that devastation, they're like, hey, we're not going to be able to afford any future hurricanes that come through. And there's a little asterisk there that he doesn't say, but it's implied, is that unless Congress comes back to Washington and funds FEMA, but they don't want to do that. And the thing too is that they cannot just simply sit there and play around with the money and move. Biden cannot just sit there and take money from one area in one bucket and say, hey, I'm going to throw it in this bucket. This is exactly why Donald Trump got into issues when he ended up taking money from the DOD and ended up allocating it over to the wall. He got into huge trouble. There was a lot of lawsuits that ended up happening over it. And second, even then, we can talk about withholding aid, and we can look at Donald Trump, who withheld aid from Hurricane Matthew. About 99% of aid was denied under Donald Trump to North Carolina after Hurricane Matthew.
So let me get this straight. So we're looking at the legality of it all, and we're looking at the sort of intricacies of it all. As far as I'm concerned,
Because they matter. Those intricacies matter, though. I know.
But here's my thing. As far as I'm concerned, when you look at the displacement and the devastation caused by this crisis, who cares about the legality of it all, right? I get it. That's sort of the order of things. Right?
So just so we're clear, you want Joe Biden to do something that he's not constitutionally allowed to do and start just saying screw the Constitution and start throwing things wherever he wants to?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm simply saying that even though that would not be a bad thing in my eyes, right? Because I think lives are more important than the
Constitution? I'm not saying that the lives don't matter.
Right.
Let's
So
be
here's
clear.
the thing. Right. So here's my whole argument. Like, I think that there are more he can take executive action to sort of like redirect, whether it's redirect funds, reallocate funds from
Can
wherever.
he though? That's the question, right? Can he just do that? Because again, he doesn't hold the purse. This is the biggest problem, right? Is that the House holds the purse. They've got to come back to Congress. Someone has to say, come back here to Washington and pass this damn funding bill. The problem of why we're having all of this is because of the fact that they left Washington with a continuing resolution that didn't actually fund FEMA. It fed a bunch of other like basic programs. So this is the problem I have, is that we keep sitting here saying, well, let's not worry about the legalese. But the problem is can Biden even do that? No, he probably can't. And that's the issue, is like, I get what you're saying, and I understand, I feel for those people in North Carolina, because they're like, hey, we just want relief. And I know this is hollow, but I promise that relief is coming. But you also have to understand, it is only about 4 or 5 days after this hurricane hit. I can tell you, as somebody who lived through Hurricane Ike, okay? I lived through Hurricane Ike, and anybody who knows that has been around for a while. Hurricane Ike hit Texas, and that devastation that it caused that particular community in Galveston and Houston, and Hurricane Harvey, we can talk about Harvey as well, that particular area that got hit, it took years to recover. In fact, we're even seeing that with Maui and the wildfires, okay? The Maui wildfires, they're still recovering from that. And so that's why it's important when we sit here and we're like, well, why aren't they doing it quick enough? It's like, it takes time. That's just how it works. And that's why they're trying to provide the $750 to try to help however they can, because that was what they're allowed to work with based on what Congress passed. Yeah.
And this is why I'm not Biden or Kamala Harris for this, because that would be completely unfair. But all I'm saying is that you know there are like, so you think that was it 600 million or $1 billion figure that they spent over the last 4 years on other stuff, you don't think that has something to do with it potentially?
So the $650 million you're referring to was only passed back in March. Okay, in March, March of 2024. They ended up, so I'll give you a little bit of history on this. So what ended up happening is in September of 2023, Republicans were trying to hold up, again, another shutdown in September of 2023. They did exactly what they did this time, and they passed a continuing resolution to go through November, I believe it was. And then they ended up passing a bill, I believe in December or so, of actually funding. And then March came around, they were still a part of that FEMA bill that they ended up having to pass through to cover some of the FEMA expenses. So when FEMA came around in March, that $650 million that you're referring to is referring to the Shelter and Services Program, which Republicans supported en masse. And that is Republicans who agreed to sign off on that funding for FEMA for that particular program. And again, once that is earmarked, the president cannot just sit there and simply yank it out of that particular wallet. It is in a wallet, it is closed, it is locked with a key, and it cannot be touched. And so that is why it's important that we sit here and as we're like, oh, well, look at this appropriation. Yeah, there's a million pieces of appropriation in every piece of that federal budget. There's a bunch of, it's kind of like when you go to a charity, this is kind of getting out of scope of government, but when you go to a charity and you say, hey, I want this to be used towards, building a new roof, okay? That charity, and this is not law, and I don't know if this is even really, I'm trying to work within here. When they go and say, hey, I want you to spend that $100 on the roof, if you go and use it to pay for the salary of the CEO's president or the charity's president, that's not legal, right? Like, that's kind of like, hey, that's not right. It's appropriate. I forgot the name of the exact contribution, but it's basically earmarked for that. It's the same thing with Congress. They earmark a particular program, and it has to be used for that program.
Yeah, I definitely get you, bro. And even let's say we weren't talking about the funding aspect of it all more specifically, but let's say, for example, why are they rejecting help from people like Elon Musk that are trying to distribute Starlinks and things like that could potentially renew services that could help us find some people that might be out there somewhere that wants help? Like, why are they not working with the people that have the resources and the technology? Because obviously they're doing pretty bad right now.
So Pete Buttigieg actually, and we went over this with the previous guest, is Pete Buttigieg actually reached out to Elon Musk and said, hey, look, if this is true, reach out to me and I'll get it squared away. And that's the thing too, is that there are coordinated efforts going on right now with the North Carolina National Guard. We have people from the Florida National Guard. We have Florida non-charity based place that's actually going out there as well. We have plenty of videos of other people being able to assist. The problem is that you are in a particular region where bridges have been wiped out, roads have been wiped out. You have a very difficult terrain to get through. And remember, there's not a whole lot of places that people can stay. There's only a limited amount of capacity for hotels and things like that, right? And so you don't want a whole bunch of people swarming to help, which is great. Don't get me wrong. It's great that a lot of people want to go and help North Carolina, by all means. But at some point, you have to sit there as a disaster management system and go, look, guys, we can't let you in. We are at capacity, and it's only going to hinder those efforts. So that's why it's important to understand that, look, there's only so much that they can really do. Now, I don't know if these are even true, to be clear. The rumors about them being turned away, I don't even know these are true. I've heard a lot of different stories coming from a lot of different ways with very little facts. And this is the problem I have when these disasters hit, is we don't know what the hell is going on, right? Because everyone keeps saying there's this narrative, this narrative, this narrative. There's very little facts. So all I can go off of is someone who I know is credible. And you may, as some conservatives may go, oh, it's government. Of course they're going to. Okay, well, then I can go to the governor. The governors are saying they are receiving every aid they can. There are videos of the North Carolina National Guard going out and delivering supplies. So by every metric I can look at, if you don't even want to consider the government's narrative, then you can look at all these other areas, right, where they're being helped out. So, yeah, I that's where I stand on this. But
yeah, I get you, man. And again, it's a very complicated issue. Again, I think that we shouldn't politicize it. But all I'm saying is I get why a lot of people...
Real quick. I want to mess with this Gabe guy real quick. Gabe, my hairline is perfect, okay? Leave my hairline alone, okay? I'm balding, okay? I'm getting old, man. All right, sorry. Go ahead, man.
It's not bad, bro. Hey, I'm going through the same thing. But yeah, like again, you cannot blame any particular politician for this at all. I see how at face value it can seem as though the government is dragging its feet when it comes to these sort of things. But like you explained, it's a lot of laws and processes that you have to abide by. And again, sometimes a lot of people that might be trying to help might actually hurt the effort. So I get all of that, but it's just very hard to see what's going on.
100%, dude.
I'm in South Carolina, bro, and I'm in Charleston. I'm like right by the port, and we go through stuff like this a lot. Not at this scale, but I've had cars that I had to have my insurance company like pay for because of the flooding that goes on down here. But the fact that it happened so close to home was just completely scary.
100%, man.
Yeah, but I appreciate you breaking that down for me.
Yeah, not a problem, man. And I appreciate you having a good conversation. One thing I want to say there, I may holler and scream, I promise. It's good. It's like a friendly boxing match, right? We go head toe to toe. But that's the thing too, man, is I have a heart for that. I see what's going on down there in North Carolina, and my heart aches. I wish that I had the means to be able to go down there and help out however I could, right? Unfortunately, I don't have the means. I have a 9-to-5. I can't just up and leave. So only thing I can do is really speak from this platform and say, look, if you can support somebody in North Carolina, please do so, whether it's funding, however it may be. You may donate to the Red Cross, wherever you feel. That's what I would say, right?
Can I say something too?
Yeah,
like I see a lot of people criticize Joe Biden for not going there, but what you have to understand is when the president go anywhere, he's not going there by himself. He has to go there with Secret Service. He has to go there with local law enforcement. He has to go there with so many people and so many cars. That's not going to do anything to help the people that are there. So I just want to be fair. Like I have my criticism of them, but you also have to make it fair. But thank you so much, bro.
No problem, buddy. I appreciate you coming in, and hopefully we can see you next time. All right. Thank you. All right. Well, guys, look, I am running thin on time. I've got my next show coming up in about 10-15 minutes called The Political Compass. We are doing it live on Twitch. Feel free to jump on there. If you're not familiar with it, you can go to my link tree down in my bio. Please make sure you follow me, okay? Please make sure you follow me on TikTok, and we will see you guys on the next one. We are going to be doing another round of these call-ins. I absolutely love it. Other than that, guys, y'all have a good one, and y'all take care, all right, guys? Take care, guys. Later. Appreciate you.